Hey everybody, welcome to Rock Video Rental. I'm Brandon, with you again as Caleb, and we are continuing on with our Halloween marathon. And today we are talking about The Bad Seed from 1956. It is directed by Mervyn Leroy. The plot is Rhoda Penmark seems like your average sweet 8-year-old girl. When her rival at school dies in mysterious circumstances at the school picnic, her mother starts to suspect that Rhoda was responsible. The cast, we got Nancy Kelly as Christine Penmark, Patty McCormick as Rhoda, Gage Clark as Tasker, Jesse White as Emery, Joan Croydon as Miss Fern, William Hopper as Colonel Kenneth Penmark, Paul Fix as Richard Bravo, and Henry Jones as Leroy.
Not Leroy, Leroy.
Exactly. Leroy. Oh, this is the first time watch for me. It's been on my list for a while. I just, I don't know. I've always been kind of intrigued by it. Anytime there's like quote unquote killer kid movies, I'm always kind of interested. And this one is considered a classic, so I figured to fit in our theme we've got. But I will say that this is one of the slower movies I've watched.
Absolutely, yeah,
This bad boy is over 2 hours long, and it really could have been an hour and a half.
for sure.
Um, so like you kind of know from watching it, like okay, this little girl killed Claude, her quote unquote rival from school, like the plot said. Um, but it's just like, okay, how long do we have to wait for everybody else to know? And that kind of stuff always kind of frustrates me. Even in a movie that I really like Child's Play, the first Chucky movie. It's like like as a viewer, you know it's Chucky killing people. You're just waiting for like the adults to know, and
Yeah.
it gets a little frustrating. And that movie's only like 90 minutes long, where this one's over 2 hours. And then what frustrates me too is with the mom is that so the mom's nuts. Like she suspects that her daughter killed Claude, and she asks her questions, and she knows that her daughter's lying. And there's a couple times where she has like talks with her, and she's trying to get her to confess, but she won't because the little girl's extremely manipulative
Mm.
and a liar. So then, like the next scene, the mom's acting normal, and it's almost like she forgets it. And then, like the next scene, she suspects her again, and then after that, she puts on a happy face for a company that comes over.
Yeah.
It's like it's all over the place. Um, I mean, with all that being said, I thought the acting was really good in this movie. It
Yeah,
was
I
really
agree.
solid, especially the mom. I thought she did a really good job. I just thought some of the things in the writing could maybe have been ironed out a little bit.
Yeah, I had that in my notes actually that the dialogue did not feel natural.
Well, like I told you, because I started watching it before you, and we watched it on the same night, but I watched it probably like a half hour before you started it.
Hmm.
And I was like, dude, I'm like a half hour in, and it's just a whole bunch of talking.
Yeah.
And like you don't see any of the murders. Uh, it's only talked about after it happens with Claude, and then we got Leroy, the gardener handyman dude, who sleeps in the basement. It's like,
Yeah.
is this how Freddy Krueger started?
Right.
Because he knows it was her all along, and he sees like through all of her lies, all Rhoda's lies and manipulations, and like he suspects her right from the beginning.
Hmm.
And he's just like, he's like, you're fast, you're smart. It's like, and you're tricky, and you know how I know that because I'm the same. It's like I can see right through all your facade you put up and all that, and they until he finds like the shoes that she used to like beat the boy with,
Hmm.
and then he says he's gonna take him to the cops, and she goes and lights him on fire,
Yeah.
and like you can hear him burning alive, but you don't see it.
Hmm.
Like honestly, this movie probably could have been rated PG, which it might have been back in the day because there was no PG-13.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was It was menacing. It was all this like looming fear. But as you said it, like they didn't show it. Honestly, like dude, uh, this movie did kind of spook me a little bit just because that little girl, first of all, like nailed it.
Oh yeah.
Because I actually know and have been around a kid. Not saying the kid would kill someone, but the types of kids that are like the manipulators and like they lie and they just like I mean, just exactly what this girl was doing, just obviously not to the level of like killing someone or even
Yeah.
let alone hurting someone, thankfully. But I have seen kids manipulate like she does, and it
Hmm.
was just spot on. So honestly, with that kind of was spooky and creepy within itself. So
Yeah, she totally knocked it out of the park, and I thought the mom did a really good job too. I guess, her going back and forth of whether she suspects her or not could just be like her being in denial. But how fast she goes back and forth made me like question like this is kind of ridiculous at times. But like I thought her performance was really good.
mhm.
Especially when she goes maniacal at the end and like has a breakdown when she knows that Rhoda set Leroy on fire,
Mhm.
and like it has absolutely no effect on Rhoda. She's just in the other room like playing piano,
Yeah.
and like her mom knows for sure because she saw her take the matches.
Yeah, it was well, like at the beginning, I kind of understood the first time that she kind of brushed it off, where it's just like, okay, because there was the speculation that Rhoda, the little girl, had been around the boy last before he died,
Uh huh.
which doesn't necessarily mean that she had anything to do with his death, but she was being secretive, lying, and manipulative. So the mom had her doubts. And then things progressively got worse from there. The thing that just seemed really unnatural to me was how the other adults went around questioning if Rhoda had anything to do it without saying it. Like it was very weird. The teacher came by and was just saying how, you know, she was the last kid to be around the boy who died and
Mm-hmm.
it just doesn't look good. She doesn't come out and say we think that she did anything, but that's what she's driving at. And then the mom is just like, well, you're essentially implying that she could have, and then the teacher denies it, and it's just like, how can you deny it? You are literally doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So that just completely confused me. I was just like, "Are you?" I was confused. Anyways, um, and then the mom of the boy who died, who did another good performance, some moments better than others, because she was supposed to essentially have turned into a drunkard after her son died, but she became obsessed with the metal pin that he had clipped to him when the day that he died.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, you're searching for this pin. And I mean, like you're being so obsessed with it, you've got to be implying that you think Rhoda did something with it, which then would also imply that she had something to do with his death.
Yeah.
Like you're not. I mean, why else would you be so obsessed with this after your son died? Like it's a pin. It's not that important. I mean, they kind of explain it a little bit more as it progresses on like, oh, why this might make sense and why it might matter. But at the beginning, it's just like, why are you so obsessed with this? You should be more devastated about your son dying just in general than the stupid pin that he was wearing. Like he fell into a lake. It could have easily come off.
Yeah, that could be like avoidance too.
Yeah.
Focusing on something else to distract yourself. subconsciously from the thing that was a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, back to that mom of Claude. That acting wise, I thought she did a really good job, especially like pretending to be drunk.
Mm-hmm.
That's like an extremely difficult thing to do. And like she comes off as like I've been around a fair amount of drunk people in my life. I mean, I went to
Yeah.
college for 5 years, maybe 6. uh, but she was pretty natural at it. Where like there's a couple of times where she's walking and she's like extremely focused on what she's doing. I'm like, okay, that's kind of hammy. But like the way her like speech was slurring, how her um thoughts just kind of like danced all over the place. Like I thought that was pretty accurate. And in contrast, uh, a movie that has someone pretending to be drunk that's incredibly bad is Kickboxer, where Van Damme has that whole dance scene in the bar and he's
Mm-hmm.
pretending to be drunk. Like that was horrible.
Yes.
Why those guys tried to hurt me. But yeah, I thought this lady did a really good job. It got to the point where I was like, is she actually drunk?
Right.
Which wouldn't surprise me as the 1950s. Like, I mean, regulations and stuff wouldn't have been as strict as they are now for movie making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were the thing with me with those scenes were they're kind of like you said on how she did a really good job on physically looking like she was intoxicated, but then she would almost step out of that
Yeah,
and then back into it. I felt like her speech did that a little bit from time to time too. Again, like this is being a little bit nitpicky because I absolutely agree she did a good job, but there were a couple times where I was just like, okay, she's talking normal now, which, you know, from going intoxicated to normal is a stark difference. So it did stick out to me a little.
yeah, yeah, I could see that. Oh, so one thing that really kind of shocked me was the ending of this,
Ugh,
or the where it should have ended at.
yes.
So, like, Rhoda's mom definitely knows that Rhoda did it. Rhoda confessed to her, and then she killed Leroy, and then she also confessed to killing an old lady that they used to live like near when they lived in Wichita. And it's obvious that Rhoda has like no remorse for anything, and like it's like she can't like grasp that someone's gone. And to her, it's just like this person was in my way, so I took care of them,
Hmm.
kind of thing. And we also find out too that Rhoda's grandmother was a serial killer,
Hmm.
and like because her mom was adopted, so she had like no idea, and it just all kind of like comes together. And like I thought that was kind of heavy fisted or heavy handed,
Yeah.
but what her mom decides to do, like she gives her like an overdose of sleeping pills, and until like the little girl falls asleep, and then like her mom thinks that she's done for her, so she like carries her off into the other room, and you just see like a shot of the hallway, and then all of a sudden you hear a gunshot,
Yeah.
like the mom shot herself.
Dude, that honestly, I got chills from that. Not gonna
Yeah, me
lie.
too. And I wish they would have ended the movie there because that was an amazing ending. And it kind of comes back like for us that we've had experience with like the Friday the 13th series, where a
Hmm.
few times they had like really amazing endings and then they just crap the bed. Where
Yeah.
this one goes on to like, oh, they got taken to the hospital and
Both
Rhoda's
survive.
okay, like she's perfectly fine. And then like the mom survives too, but she's in a coma. And the dad takes Rhoda home, and then like Rhoda goes out to I can't remember what is she looking for in the water.
Her mom said that she took the medal and put it in the
Oh,
lake where supposedly the boy would have lost
okay. And then so Rhoda goes out there to try to find the medal, and then she gets struck by lightning.
it.
And I'm like, really?
Smite
That's how we're
me, almighty smiter.
right? Uh,
God was just
gosh.
like, nope, you're done.
He's like, okay, those pills didn't do the trick. I gotta take matters in my own hands.
So terrible, man. Such a bummer. Like that gunshot is because see, like going back to the gunshot thing, and man, that would have chopped the movie down and brought it under 2 hours and maybe like an hour and 45 minutes or something then. But um so there was that very heavy scene where she gives Rhoda the pills and what's going on. She falls asleep. The mom takes her and puts her in her bedroom, and then she says something about like, I'm not gonna let them hurt you, we're both gonna go out with this or something along
Mm-hmm.
those lines. And so then she goes back to her room. I completely forgot there was any mention whatsoever that her husband owned a gun. So I was imagining that she was going to be taking sleeping pills or something of the sort of the same. And then the gunshot went off. And like I said, like I got chills and like it surprised me because I had completely forgotten. Man, could have been so. I mean, I'm not shocked that they didn't end there because
It was 1956.
exactly 1956 that would have, I mean, just the fact that they went there and suggested all of that and then kind of washed it all away, but still that they went there is, I mean, I'm not familiar with all the other movies during that time, but that's pretty big for that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, that gave me chills too. When the gunshot went off, I was like, holy crap. And then I thought that was going to be the end of the movie, and I looked to see how much was left, and there was still like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? And then the whole struck by lightning thing, I'm like, that's how you're going to kill her off?
Hmm.
Thunderstruck!
Well, it was so, I mean, I can maybe understand that they wanted some closure, but then they didn't really do anything with the closure. They brought the colonel back from Washington, D.C., which who cares about him? Like, honestly, his contribution to this movie was minimal and,
Nothing.
yeah, unnecessary. So you didn't need to finish anything with him. And like, it just did not do anything. So essentially, in the end, Rhoda dies from being struck by lightning. The mom survives, and so then that raises more questions because if it had ended with both of them dying, the mom with the gunshot, Rhoda with the sleeping pills, there would still be some unanswered questions on being like, well, how did people react? What happened to the husband? Blah blah blah. Those are all things I'd be like, whatever. But then the ending they actually went with, it made me think more of like, well, how does it go when she tells her husband, yeah, by the way, your daughter was a murderer
Right.
and like all this other stuff. So that raised more questions for me than what the ending could have been.
Yeah. They just crapped the bed.
Yes, they did.
I think, like we both said, if there would just been gunshot, and then boom, fade to black. But they had the whole scene after that, and then they also had the warning at the end.
Oh yeah. Oh shoot, did I think I took a picture of that.
Okay, yeah,
'Cause
because I don't remember the exact wordage.
yes, I did. Okay, because I did.
Verbiage.
I wanted to save it so that I could read it just because it was interesting. So it says, quote, you have just seen a motion picture whose theme dares to be startling different. May we ask that you do not divulge the unusual climax of this story? Thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know
So,
which one I like better? Only
hmm.
through the elimination of violence can we achieve world peace. Miami Connection.
Yes. So moving, I feel like I need to make a motivational poster for you with that on there.
That would be great.
Yeah.
One of
So
those with
this,
those cool landscape pictures.
or with a cat hanging on, like with one paw
Oh
hanging
gosh.
there. Um, yeah. So I mean, essentially, that's, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's just them saying, please don't spoil the ending of this movie for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so at first, when I started reading it, I was just like, oh, that's kind of interesting. They're, kind of warning people, this is a different kind of movie, don't be disturbed by it or whatever. Kind of like, what was it, Frankenstein? At the beginning, they had that warning.
Yeah.
That's at first what I thought the saying was going to be, like a warning. But yeah, it was just kind of like, hey, please don't spoil this. So
Don't tell anybody what happened.
yeah, which nowadays people would be screwed. So
Yeah. Spoilers everywhere. So, anything else you want to talk about? You want me to get into trivia?
let's do the trivia.
All right. So, Alfred Hitchcock actually turned down the chance to direct this movie.
Hmm.
So, it's the final film of Nancy Kelly, who played the mom. She was nominated for an Oscar for this movie.
Nice.
And then she never made another theatrical movie. She focused solely on TV, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
But I guess that's kind of the 50s. So Betty Davis had expressed interest in playing Christine Penmark, but director Mervyn Leroy insisted on casting Nancy Kelly, who had originated the role on stage. This was also a play.
Okay.
So, in hopes of disguising the fact that Patty McCormick was 10 playing an 8-year-old, the film's hairstylist, makeup crew, and costume designer dressed and coiffed her hair to look younger than her true age, making her dresses a little oversized, giving her more prominent bangs, and putting her facial makeup that gave her a paler complexion. When she originated the role in 1954 stage production, McCormick actually was 8. So the movie was a couple years later. Which I thought she was kind of old to be playing an 8-year-old, but
Yeah, I didn't really think too much on it. I did feel like she was I didn't really think of it age-wise, but I did feel like she was older than what she was trying to portray, just as far as, I mean, of course, kind of goes into the character of being a little manipulative kid,
oh yeah.
but she was a little bit too clever, but not outside the realm of possibility. So
Yeah. So this movie is actually included among the AFI's 2001 list of 400 movies nominated for the top 100 most heart-pounding American films.
that's a lot.
Yeah. So, Bessie Denker, who was Rhoda's biological grandmother, is loosely based on Belle Gunness, or Gunness, I mean, a Norwegian-born American serial killer who killed several of her husband's children and suitors for their money or insurance policies and buried their remains on their Indiana farm. She possibly faked her own death and disappeared in 1908.
Dang.
Yeah, which I've heard a fair amount about Belle Gunness. The last thing I got is this movie had a $1 million budget and it made $4 million in the box office, which is a lot in 1956.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the grades. I pulled from IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. So what do you think those are?
IMDb 7.7.
7.4.
Okay. Rotten Tomato 85.
63.
Holy what? Dude, the lowest we've had for this horror month has been 93 up until this point.
Let me double check that because it doesn't seem right either, but I know I looked it up.
Yeah, I mean it's very well. Hold on, I've got the. Oh well, I don't want to look at it because then it'll
The
show me.
Bad Seed. Yes, 63 is correct.
Weird.
For critics.
Audience 70.
82.
Okay.
And then I guess I'll go first this time. So it's a movie I could scratch off my list of horror movies I haven't seen. I've seen it mentioned quite a few times, and it's kind of considered a classic and influential. I mean, it's one of the first Killer Kid movies because I really can't think of any older than this one. But I mean, at the same time, it was pretty slow paced, and I'm not one of those people that can't watch black and white movies because I enjoy like It's a Wonderful Life, Three Stooges, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie is paced so slow. Like I was telling my wife after I watched it, like they could have cut out like 20 minutes at least of this movie, and then that ending we talked about, they could have truncated that as well.
Yeah.
Gunshot, fade to black. I think it would have been way better. And then if they, I guess, sequels really weren't a thing back then, but if they would have wanted a sequel, they could have,
Yeah.
instead of having her struck by lightning and falling in the water.
Right.
It, it's just so incredibly far fetched that, my gosh. Like, I haven't even seen slasher movies end that way. I've seen them start that way. Like Jason Lives, but I haven't seen him end that way. I don't know. I thought it was well acted, and the pacing of it really kind of threw me off, and I probably won't watch it again. But I can admit that it is a decent movie, so I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Rock.
It was kind of hard to grade it.
Yeah.
What about you?
I am actually right there with you at the 3.5. It's interesting. So there were, just as you said, there were some really good things about this, good performances, for back then, like some very unused content, possibly maybe brand new kind of content, as far as like the quote unquote horror genre goes. Um, but man, just like the negatives are so heavy. Um, the length, and as you refer to it, the slow burn is just tough to get past. Honestly, that brought it down to a 4 easily for me. But then the ending, with how essentially disappointing that was when they had something so good right at their fingertips. Like literally they had it, but then they decided to extend it. That just dropped it down a little bit more for me. So yeah, 3.5, still good, but man, it could have been such an impactful movie. Not saying that wasn't, but it could have been so much more. Because just thinking about it, like if it was 30 minutes shorter,
Mm-hmm.
and if they ended the movie at the gunshot, like it honestly probably would have blown my mind
Yeah.
on this that type of a movie coming out in the 50s. So it's a bummer. It's disappointing. Not to say the movie's a disappointment, but oh man, right there.
This movie's actually been remade twice.
I saw that there was at least one remake.
Yeah, in 1985 there was The Bad Seed that was a made for TV movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was remade a few years ago with Rob Lowe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for Lifetime. Which, I
Interesting.
mean, this is the kind of horror movie that can be remade,
Oh, for sure.
like for TV, so it makes sense. But yeah, I think this one, the one with Rob Lowe, probably has more killings in it from what I'm reading of the synopsis and everything. But yeah. Yeah, it was just nice to scratch it off my list. And we'll be continuing on with our classic marathon. Next time, we're going to be talking about another movie I haven't seen before, and that's A Bucket of Blood. So, another classic to mark off my list. And as always, be kind and rewind.